Action.
Okay. So, hi everyone. In 1971, the very first Women's World Cup tournament was held in Mexico. But whilst other countries had embraced their female footballers, England and its Football Association had no time for anything but the men's game and refused to send an official team. Visionary Harry Batt, a bus driver from Luton, decided that England should be represented and defiantly assembled a squad of 13 to 19-year-old girls with his wife June and took them to Mexico unofficially. Once there, the locals fell in love with these girls, nicknaming them Las Chicas de Carnaby Street, was the time. And they played 3 matches in front of huge crowds against the official international teams of Argentina, Mexico and France. Although understandably finishing 6th out of 6 countries, the girls all came back having had a life-changing experience, and in the eyes of the Mexican locals at least, were absolute heroes. However, it was a very different story when they returned to England. The national press ridiculed them, and whilst the English FA banned every girl that took part from playing competitive football for 2 years, Harry Batt was banned for life, even though just a year later the same English FA decided to recognise women's football officially. England's top scorer in Mexico with 2 goals in front of 90,000 fans was Janice Barton. And she stopped her daughter, and coming to that bit, and she stopped her daughter playing football for years because of her own traumatic experience. 50 years later, that same daughter
50?
decided...
50, Rick!
Sorry, hang on.
I'm joking.
1971? Yeah.
All right.
That same daughter decided to interview every one of her mother's teammates, and the result of that is the book released just last week, The Lost Lionesses, soon to be turned into a TV dramatisation cataloguing the injustice of their treatment, an injustice still not recognised to this day. That daughter went on to become a twice world champion in mixed badminton doubles and an Olympic silver medal winner in Athens, 2004. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, GAIL EMMS. That's it, that's the end now. So GAIL, how did this book come about?
Oh my gosh, it's I've been talking about my mum for so long. Like, my mum is my absolute hero. She's the reason why I got into badminton. She is a completely psycho-competitive mother, obviously, as you can sort of imagine. She's a footballer, but she was just such a bundle of energy and such an inspiration from why I played badminton. And I knew about her footballing story. Like, she showed me her scrapbook, and I just thought it was completely normal. I thought everyone knew about this time when women went out to Mexico and played, for England. But every time I said the story, people just sort of laughed at me and thought I was making it up. So I kind of just went, okay, fine, that's just a bit weird. And it's only as I got older and I was doing, the more motivational talks after sort of winning the medal and everything, people started becoming a little bit more interested. And it's only in the last 5 years with the women's football, the real boom in it, that everyone's just gone, oh, hang on a sec, sorry, there was a time when women were banned from playing football, and what was I heard you were saying about something about your mum, and then suddenly people putting the links together. And then Rick, you asked me to go onto the Spurs podcast, the Spurs show.
Finding out that GAIL was a fellow Spurs fan, and at this point some of you might want to walk out, I got GAIL onto the Spurs show, which is the biggest of the Spurs fans podcasts. It has about 25 to 30,000 listeners each episode, and GAIL was on there with Jeff Pope, who writes a lot of dramatisations for TV, also a Spurs fan. And then suddenly, to everyone's surprise, came out with this story
Yeah, it was
about
Spurs,
her mum. So everybody heard it first on this Spurs podcast. And I just thought, and Jeff Pope thought as well, this is an unbelievable story. Because it is a real story of injustice. So we then decided that this should be a book, and if GAIL still had the access to the teammates of her mum, then we could make this into something quite big. And so that's when because I'm a literary agent, and I approached Hachette and their imprint Castle. They loved it. Somebody scored at Manchester United. I'll turn that off in a minute. And because they could see that this was a great story as well, they decided to commission it. And that's how it happened from my end.
Yeah.
But then you had a lot of work to do.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Yeah. I've never written a book or anything like this before. I'm a talker, and I go on. I'm a host and things like that. So I've never had to sit down and write or anything like that. So it was there were lots of tears, that's for sure. But what the most beautiful and I think the most emotional thing for me was actually interviewing my mum. And it was really weird because it's like the first time I sat with my mum and asked her all the little details about her childhood and things that I didn't know. And it was actually I'm like, how do I not know this? And I got really sad. And she talked about some times when she was playing football, she just didn't have any friends because no one would play with her. She was a girl, or she just wanted to go. She didn't have interest in going to parties or shopping with what was considered girly things. So she just used to go to the park and just practice her keepy-ups. And it got me really, really upset. And actually, when I interviewed all 14 of the girls, there was something in their story that resonated with me. Like there was something where there was a bit of resilience part or determination or sort of trying to that I'm still going to do this. There was something in all of them that I just went, oh my God, that's me. I know what that felt like. And so knowing their stories more meant I needed to put it in because that innocence and that beauty of sport that we love, that purity of sport is so important. The reason why we played, whatever, if it's a sport or it's something we do at our happy place, that feeling of just being free and, sort of being accepted as well. And these girls, they felt free and accepted playing football together on that football pitch, and yet they weren't allowed to do that. And that's what really, really got me. And it's hard to believe nowadays, isn't it? It's just hard to think that, wow, like someone, it's just kicking a ball, it's just kicking a ball in some grass. Yeah, they were told, by authorities. Actually, the boys in their communities were really supportive. I have to say, the boys were like, oh yeah, she's one of us, she can play football. But they had to prove themselves over and over again. And yet they did, they just carried on even against all the odds. It was just, that's the beauty of it.
And it should be said as well that a lot of these girls came from one club. Because Harry Batt couldn't get the usual internationals, the England internationals, so they came from, about 8 of them came from
Chiltern Valley, there's a place in Luton, and I always say you need men to champion women's sport, you need men to support it, you need them to go, yes, I've got a daughter or I've got a sister, and they to have that, because in those days there wasn't that, men weren't championing women's sport that much. So all it takes is one person to open that door, that unlock a key, and it can just be it can do so much for so many people, so many women. And so Harry decided to set up Chiltern Valley Ladies, and he used to write in the newspaper as well, so he was always putting adverts in about his women's football team. So he was always writing about the scores, the matches they played, match reports and everything like that. So by kept putting those things in the paper, suddenly more girls started seeing it, and then that's how it built up. because there was no internet or anything like that. There was no like, you know, my mum heard it from a word of mouth through somebody else who lived in the area, and she wrote a letter to say, please can I come and have a trial, and then Harry wrote a letter back saying, please come along, you know, that's the way it was. And suddenly, you know, they found this lovely
when you went back, because I still, when we talk about them, I still call them the girls, because they're 13 to 19 in the story, in when it happened. Obviously now they're mature ladies. When you went to visit them, were some still a little bit traumatised by the whole experience and were reticent about telling their story in this? Yeah,
every single girl was very different with their story. Some were very bitter. I think Louise, one of them. Now, Louise was probably the most talented in the team, and she actually gave up pretty soon after the Mexico tournament because she just got tarnished. She got told she would never get an England trial, never play, you know, sort of, and she got so upset with that she was never, because she went to Mexico, that was it. So she stopped playing at 22, 23 years old, and I think for her it was actually quite traumatic talking about it, because she knew that she could have done more. Yeah. She could have really been an amazing player, and knowing that it was kind of stopped, for her it was actually quite traumatic. She got quite upset talking about it. And then you've got someone like Val is just the most dry humoured. She's like, oh, it was just nice getting out the house, you know, like just like talking about it, really quite funny. And she's like, I just really like playing football. I really like Hitchin Town Football Club. That's the best pitch I've ever played on. You know, like really lovely stories about it. And she was just so grateful and appreciative of having an opportunity to play. So everyone had a different story. And again, that's what the beauty of it. And the best thing is they're reunited now, and they all meet up, and they act exactly the same as they did then. It's like you can see all the different characters. Yeah. Carol, the captain, really you sit there, you know, ordering them all about. You've got the two defenders, Big Jean and Trudy, they sit together, they're still a little partnership together. And it's amazing how they've, 50 years later, they've just basically gone back into their old roles. They do it, talk exactly the same. It's like it's never ever.
And they got together again for the one show?
Yeah,
they got together on the one show.
One show, yeah.
And some of you may have seen that. And they were doing keepy up.
Yeah, that was my mum doing the keepy up.
It was your mum doing the keepy up.
Lillian, I think, the goalkeeper, she's only 5 foot. She was the goalie, yeah. Mm-hmm. But apparently she could jump like a cat, so she's like a ping pong ball. And anyway, she was in bad health. She's not had the greatest thing. She went in goal, she blooming dived, didn't she? There's the one show going, oh my god, you know, she's just like, yeah. And they're like, you don't have to do that. She's like, well, what do you think I'm supposed to do? I'm a goalie, like that. You know, again, straight back into that character, that typical goalie attitude. She went straight that, and they are exactly like that.
So it was a real mixture of experiences. I mean, obviously it was traumatic coming back and then finding yourself banned, finding yourself ridiculed in the national press. But some of the experiences were positive, because it was a great thing going out and playing football in front of that many people in Mexico.
Yeah, and I think there were positive experiences, and it changed a lot of their lives and a lot of their outlooks. I think Chris, she's got a really poignant story that for her it was a coming of age story. She was 15 when she went out there, and actually she realised she was gay, and she was like, this is it, I've got to grow up. She'd been in a lot of trouble at school and stuff like that. And for her, it's a real I need to sort my life out.
She does say that.
Yeah, she does say it. I'm not outed her. I'm not outed Chris. Chris is very happy to talk about it, and she's really proud of it, because she went out there and she admits that she'd been in, she was a bit rebellious, and she was just sort of wasn't sure about herself and everything. And Mexico, she had said she had these 4 or 5 weeks, the most incredible moment. She went, I need to sort my life out, I need to accept certain things, and it changed her life for the positive in that way.
But it also changed your life, didn't it? Because your mum wouldn't let you play football, which is kind of why you went into badminton.
It is, yeah. So my mum said she could see I was sporty, when she would, I just love running around and just sort of, doing stuff. But she was so I don't remember kicking a ball with mum at all when I was younger. I do not remember anything. So my mum plays with my boys all the time. You play with Nan Jan, don't you? Local football. You love it. But I don't remember kicking a ball. And So and I did ask her that. She said, well, I didn't want you to go through the abuse that I went through. You know, when she was, having a practice or, sort of in the fields, she'd get shouts of like, oh, get back in the kitchen, and, girls can't play football and all this sort of stuff. And she just went, and then even when I was born 77, so in that 80s era, there was still not really many clubs. And we were just talking about you'd had to drive really far for your daughters to play football. And that, and it was shocking really that you look around, there was no pathways, no support, no girls teams. And so my mum just went, what's the point? Because if I did teach you, where do you go? What do you do? There's no movement for that women's football. So so I just...
But we did end up with the world champion.
Well, she did all right in that sense.
So I think that leads
He's saying this really. This is the story. This is how my mum I remember at age 7, my mum said, would you like to play a game of badminton? So my mum's quite good at badminton as well. So I thought, this is amazing. I'm playing against my hero, my mother. She thrashed me 11-0 over and over and over again, right?
Have we got any press here?
Yeah, like it's fine. I've had therapy, so I can talk about it. But yeah, and I was just like, oh my god, it took me 5 years to be her. 5 years of just hell, of just like that. And I have asked her about this. I was like, did you ever want to like let me win a point? She went, well, like, how did it make you feel? I was like, exactly how it made me feel. I was just like, I just said, well, what did you do about it? And I said, you know what I did about it? I joined the junior club and I became obsessed with winning this point off you. So anyone who came around the house, I was in the back garden going, right, come on, practice, because I want to, win this point of mum. And she went, well, there you go. Made you want to get better. Good parenting. Debatable. But that's my mother. And you know what? She did it. My mum taught me as well to play with boys, not in that way. That sounded wrong.
We might have to edit that.
Play against don't be scared of playing against boys, especially as a girl. Like, never be afraid. And I think that's because she did that. She had to play with the boys in the football environment and stuff. And I think that was really important that she taught me in badminton that I challenged a boy. And the boy was like, oh, I'm not playing against you, you're a girl. And I was like, bring it on. And then maybe that's why I got into mixed doubles.
And I think it's probably also the reason that she's the one that can still do keepy up is.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I can't do any keepy up. It's all
so the girls had a traumatic experience, but they still really felt bad for Harry Batt, didn't they? Because he did so much for them. And his son, was it Keith?
Yeah.
Keith went out there as a little boy, went to Mexico.
Mascot,
so he was there as the mascot. I know, but obviously he's now grown up, and he knows that his dad is still looked upon in this way. They never apologised. There was never any acknowledgement for him being this visionary and really being the person that kickstarted the Lionesses that we know today. So what came over in your interviews in terms of the feelings about what happened to Harry?
So Harry is, when we talk about this maverick character, Harry was very, very interested. He was quite small, and he was a tenor singer. So he used to be an entertainer. And so you can imagine like this small guy, huge voice, and he had that entrepreneur kind of mind. So you can see how he probably annoyed quite a few people. He was a loud character, extrovert, and when he had something, in his mind, he wanted to do it. It was all guns blazing. That's the kind of guy he was. The women loved him, adored him, because he gave them somewhere to go. Like, he set up that Chiltern Valley, and they were so appreciative and everything like that, and he was like, come on, we're going to show that we can do women's football, and of course the girls just thought he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. They didn't know he got banned for life, because again, they all went their separate ways. They sort of lost touch because of the bans and everything like that. So it was only with the reunion that Keith, Harry's son, told the women, oh yeah, Harry was banned for life. And Chris, who I've mentioned earlier, she's not emotional, she's a joker and everything like this. She literally just cried her eyes out, and they were like, we didn't know, we didn't realise. Every single one of the girls are like fuming. And Harry went to the FA and he peeled over and over again for the girls not to be banned. He was like, punish me, but don't ban the girls. And the FA were like, we're banning all of you. And when, the girls are so upset because they didn't know. And then they also went, well, if we did know, what could we have done about it?
Right.
Because again, at that time, in the 70s, to go up against the FA and say, hello, I don't think you should ban Harry. You know, there was no appeal process, there was nothing like that. It would have been, shush, you're lucky, we can put more ban on you or something like that. So yeah, there was I think the girls, what they want from, the story coming out is the Harry, because Harry did so much for so many girls there.
And hopefully, I mean, for anybody who saw the dramatisation of the recent post office scandal, I mean, that really sort of started off a movement, if you like, for the injustice of what happened, and we're kind of hoping that the same happens with this, because it isn't an injustice. It's hard for Keith, it's hard for the girls, I'm still going to call them the girls, and we hope that this will shine a light on it. Did anybody see the recent film, Copa 71?
Copa 71, yeah.
I'm getting a few nods.
So
Copa 71, yes, my wife. So Copa 71 told the story of that tournament, which was coincidental that was going on at the same time that GAIL appeared on the Spurs show. But anybody who saw that film will see that it tells the story of the whole tournament, and obviously England went out early, so they're not in it much. Your mum was interviewed on it, was one of the people that were interviewed on it. But nowhere on that film did it say that we took an unofficial side, that the girls were 13 to 19 and were nowhere near of the standard of the internationals that were playing for Mexico and Denmark, who eventually won the championship, and Italy and Argentina and France. And so we felt that the story of the England team really needed to be told, because it certainly wasn't in Copa 71. It was a good film, and it told the story of the tournament. But this tells the real story of the unofficial England team that went out there and what they had to face. And the girls came back with a few injuries, didn't they?
They did. There was a couple of broken legs, yeah. Let's just say the South American players were a little bit rougher than what they were used to. And again, we had a young team, so they were older and physically stronger. But yeah, the Copa 71 is a brilliant documentary. It was really weird. I was in a cinema and watching, they found footage, archive footage, and I was watching my mum in the Azteca Stadium, 19 years old, centre forward, running up and down, and it was a bit like, this is really freaky. You're watching Nan. Do you remember Nan Janolis? Yeah. And it was a bit like, oh my god, that's her. And it started, because like when you see it, like, oh my god, it's actually real. It's not. But it's, I think what's really important as well to stress that I think the organisers of the tournament were like, oh, it's going to be like a beauty parlour, these girls in skimpy little shorts and being all sexy on that football pitch. And then all the girls turned up, they were like this. There was a punch-up in between Mexico.
It was sponsored by Martini Rossi.
Martini Rossi. There was a punch-up between the Mexico and Italy game.
Oh, yeah.
Where the referee was obviously being bought to get Mexico through. Italy had 2 goals, perfectly okay goals, disallowed. And then there was a punch-up. Then the ref stopped the game after 80 minutes because everyone was just going like crazy. Yeah. So yeah, there was some drama, and these women, they were good footballers. And some of the skill that you see, they're not like they're going, oh, look at my hair, like what they wanted. And they even had beauty salons they wanted to put beauty salons in the dressing rooms, and the girls were like, whatever. And I think that was really important that came across, that it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. Was nothing like that, and the fans love the football. That's really important. But yes, there were 2 broken legs, Carol and Yvonne. They got a little bit of the broken bones as a couple of plaster casts on the way home. I think Marlene, she ended up upside down and landed on her neck, so she couldn't play the rest of the tournaments. Lillian, she had to have injections in her shoulder, the goalie. It was, they were just, I think Harry was, my mum said she heard Harry just shout, our girls are getting butchered, basically. They're getting, it was so physical.
You could see that on
and then you got the heat and the humidity, and plus they made England play 2 matches within 24 hours as well. So one of the matches being at 12.
And weirdly, because this was kind of an unofficial tournament as well, even though the Mexican FA let it go ahead, they wouldn't let the teams that were part of the Mexican FA use their stadiums.
Yeah.
So bizarrely, the 2 stadiums that had to be used were the biggest stadiums in Mexico because they weren't connected to a club. So they used the Azteca in Mexico City and Guadalajara.
And
Guadalajara. So it
really backfired for FIFA.
It did,
So FIFA just basically rang up. I don't know if he rang up with the Mexican FA. Wrote a letter, dear Mexican FA, if you hold this tournament in any of your stadiums, you will be banned from FIFA. So they threatened Mexico FA and said you cannot have this tournament and those stadiums. So Mexico went, okay, you won't be in any of our stadiums. But the organisers, this Italian businessman group of entrepreneurs, along with Harry, went, okay, so what stadiums can we use? And the only 2 that weren't run by Mexico FA was the Azteca and Guadalajara, which is owned by a media group, Televisa. Now Televisa went, okay then, and they thought, brilliant, we own all the networks, we own all the newspapers, we own all the radio stations. So what do? Bombarded Mexico with their pictures and posters of the Women's World Cup. It was the year after the Men's World Cup in '70. So everyone was on the front cover of newspapers. They put the tickets down. It was affordable. It became a carnival. So 4 or 5 weeks of carnival. And what happened? Oh, it sold out, didn't it? So that's why the crowds. I mean, who'd have thought that?
And just to put this into context as well, the format of that World Cup, it was just 2 groups of 3. So each team played twice. And then the top team went through to play the team that had played, the country that had finished second in the other group, so that there were semi-finals and then a final. Now, every one of these games was around 100,000 crowd. They were all sold out. But because the England girls had become so loved by the locals, they decided to put on a 5th and 6th place match, which took place in Guadalajara.
No, Azteca.
On the Aztec Stadium, in front of 90,000 people for a 5th and 6th place match. And again, to put it into context, France and England played in that game, and England only lost 3-2 and were playing against the French national team. And who scored the 2 goals in front of 90,000 people? Girls' mum.
And it's a really interesting stat that there's only 6 English people who've ever scored in the Azteca. Gary Lineker's top with 3, my mum's next with 2. And it's really, really funny. And it's like, Peter Beardsley's got 1, I think Kerry Dixon's got 1. But my mum's got 2, so it's like,
Nothing on Janice Spartan.
Exactly, so that's a good trivial dispute question.
So coming up to the present day, how do the girls, the ladies, feel about what's happened now with the Lionesses and all the acclaim that they're getting? Are they jealous of it, or are they really happy about
absolutely loving it? And I cannot stress, when I really hope in the book as well, to stress the innocence and naivety of the girls when they went out there, and all they do is love football. They are not jealous one iota. They are so happy. They buy their tickets they all buy their tickets at the England matches. They all go and support. They watch it. They are so happy. And I'm like, please don't buy tickets. Let me see if I can get some tickets for you, like freebies. Like some of them, they've not got much money or anything like that. So I'm like, no, don't be silly. We don't want to cause any fuss. And we're like, oh my gosh, you know, and they sit around, they just talk about the team selection, and they're like, oh, Serena Wiegmann, she's, oh, I like what she's done, oh, I don't like that pass back move which they do, and they just sit there and they, with their cups of tea and biscuits, and they meet up and they go and support them, and it's just beautiful, and it's so lovely. However, when we talk about the story, what's coming up now is like they realise how the FA and authorities have pushed back women's football, that how women's football has been pretty much halted, or whatever you want to call, stalled for probably about 30 years, and that's what's coming really apparent. This, what could have, what should have, what potentially could have happened 30 years ago didn't. Because they stopped it.
But it was happening in other countries.
It was, but then again, FIFA, and there just wasn't, it was still trying, and it sort of had these spurts, but it never, ever, no one fully got on board to get it really going like it is now. So I reckon it could have happened 30 years before. And that's what these do, we're looking at little things. There was a chance to have a 1972 Women's World Cup at Wembley. Yeah. So Jeff Hurst and Bobby Moore heard about 71 in Mexico, and they heard about the commercial success, and they came round Harry Batt's house with their money, a chequebook, £50,000 each, when we want to invest in it, because this is going to be amazing. 2 current England men's footballers did that, and then the FA had a vote, and guess what? They voted no. So, you know, when you hear stuff like that, you go, it was a commercial success. It would have been a commercial success.
Yeah, the only thing about that was that West Ham fans would have claimed that as their World Cup. So you do a lot of after dinner speaking, and you mix with a lot of the recent Lionesses. Are they aware of this story, and do they want to get involved?
They are aware. Serena Wiegmann actually acknowledged the 70 these girls in a recent interview with Sky Sports. They went, I just want to say, if it wasn't for the 71 team, they wouldn't be England women's football they are now. And it's real. And I don't think the FA were too happy with that comment, but it's true. You know, this kick-started it. And Serena actually invited Jill, Chris, and Leah to talk in front of the current Lionesses, and she's very, very adamant of the current group hearing about legacy, hearing about where it's come from, so understanding that she has to stay standing on the shoulders of giants. Yeah, it's a real motto of the Lionesses, and she had the girls talk about their Mexico experience, and Leah, Jill, and they were standing there in front of the group, like Jill Scott was still playing, and so it's 3 years ago. And so they were like, oh my God, this is the whole Lionesses. They talked about the Mexico thingy, and the girls were like, wow, we want to do you proud. So they do know about it, and they think it's brilliant, and they're so grateful, again, appreciative. And that's what's great about the women's game. They get it, they understand what some girls had to go through just to be able to play football, to kick a ball. And
it's probably going to be the gravitas of some of the recent Lionesses getting involved with this that's going to really help it. So what I'm going to do now is open up to questions from the floor so that you can ask. Yeah, especially you two.
That's all right. Okay. We're
you there. So has anyone got a question for GAIL?
I do.
Yeah.
So why were the FA so anti-women playing football?
We don't know. So the original ban in 21 was because after the First World War, the women were getting crowds. So there was some we were talking about it downstairs. There were some exhibition matches when the men were in war, and for charity to raise money for like wounded heroes and stuff like this. They were getting so much money that the FA weren't happy because they weren't getting a cut of it because it wasn't sanctioned by them. So there was a bit of like, oh no. So in those days, their response was, it's not suitable for women's bodies. So they actually put it in medical journals that because women have breasts and they don't want to interfere with their childbearing and stuff like this, and that's what they tried to do to deter the girls, that they were not allowed to play. And that's the only reason we can think of why the ban was in place. So no women were allowed to go on any FA pitches at all, weren't allowed to play, weren't allowed to form a club. it was only after 66 that there was, you know, the whole nation got thing that actually were like, why aren't girls allowed to play football? And especially women's rights movements in the 60s as well. So that together started people thinking and going, this is a bit weird, isn't it? I mean, why we can't? So that's the only reason why. Now the FA rescinded the ban in 1969, but just didn't tell anyone. They didn't tell anyone until 1971. So people think it's actually the ban was lifted in 71. No, it was lifted in 69. They just didn't tell anyone. So we think it's just I just wanted it to keep it a men's game. You know, and we try and find archive pictures and stuff, and is the media are very you know, it's not suitable when women are too delicate, and you know, they just so adamant like that. And yeah, we just don't know. They were anti-Harry because they didn't like the way he went about it and just picked people and did that. They wanted to make it a bit more, you know, compliant and stuff like that. And they just didn't like his style. They just hated him basically. So that's the only reason why.
And also some of the headlines that there were in the national press when the girls got back were just crazy, and it's the same newspapers that now love to herald the Lionesses. That's why it's not just the FA that need to apologise for what happened at the time and recognise Harry and the girls as being the trailblazers for the Lionesses. It's also some of our national newspapers who really, you know, have almost like forgotten some of the things that they said. Some of the headlines were dreadful, weren't they?
Yeah, you know, don't laugh. Maybe one day there'll be an Arsenal ladies or something. And, you know, it was very much that patronising kind of feel. And what's really lovely is like, because Harry was quoted saying there will be a female Man United, there'll be a female Arsenal. And one of the girls, Jill, who was 14 in Mexico, she actually became one of the founding ladies, women footballers of Arsenal ladies. So she saw Harry's vision through. She was 1986 and she just had a baby. Her daughter was 5 months old on the sideline. She wore an Arsenal shirt, and she's only little, she's only about 4'11". She had to wear a men's Arsenal shirt because that's what they wouldn't give them women's stuff. And she had this massive shirt, but she played for Arsenal ladies. So in that way, I think that's really lovely. The one story that kind of got through that Harry had that vision, and she managed to become an Arsenal
What we haven't told her, of course, is that this all came about from a Spurs podcast.
She knows. She's okay about it.
Any other questions?
I have so many.
That's all right.
How long did they play together before the World Cup?
Not long. So about 8 of them were Chiltern Valley, and then a few of them were from other teams. So Yvonne and Jill, the little Jill at the Arsenal, they had not even met anyone. So they literally just appeared. The reason why it was so haphazard, Harry, and this is important to stress, there were better women footballers than the group that went out there. Most of them got warned off by the FA, threatened that if you go there'll be a ban. That's why a lot of them are so young, because they didn't know about all the threats and stuff. So there were actually some Sue Lopez, I think one of the really good footballer at that time, but they got, again, the FA warned them, if you go there'll be consequences and stuff like that. So it was a last minute ditch attempt, and a lot of the girls had to go to the passport. In Peterborough, I think, got an influx of these girls going, we need a passport. Because it just trying to find people. Some women who were asked couldn't go because their jobs, they'd be sacked. So my mum actually quit her job because her boss went, if you go, you're sacked. My mum went, see ya. She said he was a pervert anyway. Sorry, that's off.
Let's not finish on that note.
A lot of the women were sort of, could work, and it just wasn't that support. One of the ladies, Marley, she worked for the post office, and they said to her, because it's not sanctioned, you won't get paid. Well, the only thing we can do is you'll have a job when you get back, but you won't get, So all her colleagues did a whip round for her, so she could have some money to spend in Mexico. So there was, that kind of stuff. There was just no support like that. So you were very lucky. 2 were in the RAF, and the RAF were very supportive actually. But it just depended on the circumstances.
So they didn't get paid to play either?
No, not at all. And
I think what this really shows is if if we go back to Copa 71, the film that was made, and this is a story within a story, but this in itself has stories within stories, because every one of those women had their own individual stories about what happened, and GAIL, I think, has captured them really well in the book, because they have opened up in a way that they haven't done for
They haven't, a lot of them
years.
haven't. And a lot of them didn't know each other's story as well, so they're like, oh, I didn't know that about you, Lillian, and I didn't know that about you, and that was quite nice, you know, that just sort of, because sometimes we don't really know people, but we actually don't really know, and actually how they started, or family life, and, you know, all that kind of stuff, so, or who was their inspiration and everything, so yeah, it's been quite nice for them going, oh, that was nice to know.
Well, you found out things about your own mum, didn't you?
I know.
That you didn't know. So.
It was, just, you know, like, my mum grew up in North London. Oh, she actually grew up in Arsenal territory, so she supported up Tottenham to annoy everyone. That's her story. But she said there was no green fields or anything like that, and you know, her fun. It was like her fun was obviously to ride up and down the underground. I was like, what? Like, it was just really like quite.
Yeah, that's
quite
not
fair.
fun now.
No, that can't be anything worse. And then they eventually moved out, and you know, sort of, she said seeing a field for the first time, and she said clean air. That was in Biggleswade. Yeah, it was lovely. It was really, should have done it earlier. That's how I felt guilty. That's how I felt. That's definitely, you don't know everything.
So, has anybody got any other questions?
Were they all English?
It's what the players. Also, so one of them is Irish. So Leah, the 13-year-old, so there was a 13-year-old when Leah, she was actually born in Ireland, but she was grew up in England. I think she moved over when she was 3 or 4. So she's kind of half Irish, half English. So that's the only thing that they thought, because when they went out there, Harry entered them as British independents. That's what they thought they had to enter, because all the girls were like, oh, that's because Leah's Irish, like this. And then they got told, they're like, no, because you're not supposed to be called English, Inglaterra. So but then Mexico decided.
It was them that decided that no, we're not. You're England.
Yeah.
And that was it. So that probably upset the FA. But it was that wasn't Harry Batt's fault. He tried to make sure that everybody knew that they were going out as independents, that they were going out there unofficially, but that's not the label the Mexicans themselves put on it, and that's obviously the message that got back to the FA. So, as you can see, we have lots of these lovely books. I think my wife has a question. Did you have a question?
Where did Harry get the kits from?
Yeah, so when the Chiltern Valley kits, when he was doing the club, so a lot of it he raised money fundraising. So they did like sponsored events or jumble sales and everything like this. And he even got his boss, he used to ask for advances so the women could have kits. So he did everything like that. The whole family was so dedicated to the women that he would and it was never matching. Like one of the stories, they were so jealous of the other teams when they went to tournament because they all had matching kit. Yeah. And they were a bit of like a jumble of whatever they could find, like sort of various different men's clothing stores and stuff. But the good thing is that Martini Rossi sponsored the whole tournament, and that luckily they sponsored all the kit as well, because they would never have had that. And Leah still got the original shirt she wore in Mexico. She was like, I think I was supposed to give it back. But Leah's the one that she was a little scamp basically, and she bought 13-year-old. She bought everything back. She's got so much memorabilia and stuff. But yeah, Martini
Which
Rossi.
has been very useful for the people.
It has been very useful. And she had a memory of an elephant. She's the one that remembered everything. Paula, I interviewed Paula. I said to her, so you can tell me everything. How was the match? And she scored a goal in the Aztec in one of the matches. And she went, I can't remember. And I was like, give me anything, Paula. Give me something. And she was like, yeah, I stuck out of a hotel window once to go off with the football. I was like, oh, brilliant, Paula, brilliant, thank you. Anything about the match? And so Paula remembered some of her antics, but she didn't remember some of the football. But yeah, so thank goodness for Martini Rossi, because they paid for the flights, they paid for the hotel, They paid for the kits. Even they had, I think they had some uniform. A Luton store paid for their walking out uniform. Yeah, that was it. They just, it was all. They would never have been able to afford anything like that. There was never any,
So all these stories are in the book. They're all the individual ladies' stories, which are incredible. Obviously, we've read through them. And the book was released last week on the 26th, so literally we were about 3 days in. If you want to buy one tonight, and we hope you do, they're £20, which is less than you would pay through Amazon and the delivery fee that you get with it, plus these will be signed, and you can have your photograph taken with GAIL. So you are going to be the first to buy these, and you're going to be the first people to actually hear this, because we're going to be doing this with women's institutes next year, and obviously hopefully we can get the dramatisation sealed, and hopefully a documentary. But this will become a very big story over the next few months, and you've been right in at the very beginning of it with this.
Thank you.
Can I ask
Thank
one
you.
more
Yeah,
thing?
go ahead.
Has the FA responded to any of this?
Right, so they've been very quiet, that's for sure.
Yeah.
There's been no apology, no acknowledgement,
Nothing yet, so they know about it. They do know about it because I know the comms lady. Well, she's left now. The comms lady used to work for the British Olympic Association, so I know her well. And she just sort of messaged me going, "What's this about you writing a book?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm writing a book about my mum's story. You know, that's the fact of it." And then she was just like, "Okay," and that was it. ... And then I saw she left that post. Now the new person, the comms and marketing person, I don't know them, but it's just been suspiciously quiet, that's for sure. Now there was a plaque, Luton Heritage. Is it the Heritage, the blue plaque?
Yeah,
it's the
Blue
Heritage.
Plaque Society, yeah.
So they put a plaque. So there was a lot of campaigning from Keith, Harry's son, and the women about just to recognise on the Crawley Green Sports and Social Club where the girls Chiltern Valley were, just a bit of a recognition. And especially after the one show, and people were sort of like, hang on a sec. So they got a blue plaque funded, and the FA put their name on it.
Oh.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And we were like, oh, they have they? And it was like there was nothing from the FA, and it was like it was basically the Luton, the Heritage, saying in recognition of Harry Batt and Harry and Jean Batt for their work for women's football, and yet somehow the FA got their name on it, and we were all a bit like, interesting, but nothing.
Yeah, over the next few months the truth will come out, and you will see it come out.
There's we're trying to get some like minutes from the meeting, the minutes from meetings and stuff like that about Harry, and they've all been lost in a fire apparently and stuff like that. So yeah, there's some suspicious silence, I think, is the right way of saying it.
We're filming this.
Oh,
so
sorry, maybe.
You've got to be careful with the lawyers.
No, yes, allegedly. So
anyway, please come and get your signed books. I will take card and cash, but first of all, please, can we thank GAIL?
Then they've got a Wikipedia page called the Lost Lionesses, and I think it's just stuck. So I've always referred to them as the Lost Lionesses as well. So
what was strange was when I was negotiating the book deal for this, the commissioning editor said, "Oh, we'll come up with a name." So the working title was the Lost Lionesses, and they had it for literally months. We'll come up with a name. We'll come up with a
They came
name.
up with some rubbish.
They came up with some absolute dreadful names, and in the end, they had to decide. They had to admit that was the best title. They couldn't come up with a better title. They are the Lost Lionesses.
And they some of the women, and 3 of the women didn't even tell their children about their Mexico adventure. Such Carol, the captain, she stopped after thingy, and then after one show, her son rang her up and, "Mum, you're on Sky Sports talking about football. Why?" Just like, yes. By the way, he was like, "What the hell?" And Jill, who was one of the Arsenal ladies, her daughter knew about her Arsenal journey, but she never told her about the Mexico, because she was so ashamed of it, because she got banned and everything, so she never told that. And there was one other didn't tell their children. You're like, oh my God, my mum told me every day. I'm amazing. No, I'm joking.
My daughter
Exactly.
ever played for Arsenal, I would.
Did the other national teams ever find out the standard that they were playing against?
No, so it was all a bit of... so at there were a couple of qualifiers before. So the Italian businessmen who started this off, they had set up some Italian semi-pro leagues being held at AC Milan Stadium, San Siro, that is, isn't it? Juventus. So they were holding some sort of players, and they were trying to bring some international players. So they did kind of know, and the qualifiers for the Mexico were in Sicily, so they did have an idea of that, but they didn't know the South American standard.
But did these girls have to qualify?
Yes, they had to qualify in Sicily, but they didn't. They thought they didn't know it was a World Cup qualifiers. They just went there for a tournament in Sicily. It was just because these Italian businessmen were like, "We'll have a tournament in Sicily," and then they thought, yes, that could be the qualifiers for the World Cup. There was not much because it wasn't sanctioned. These guys were just basically winging it, and then they decided that was the qualifier for the World Cup, and But then they tried to get Brazil to go play, but I was saying to you guys earlier, it was actually a criminal offence for girls to kick a ball in Brazil at the time, so they couldn't invite Brazil. And China were banned. China was banned until 1972. Women weren't allowed to play football. So they didn't have an idea. The girls knew an idea of Denmark, Germany. So some of the teams didn't go out to Mexico because, again, pressure from the FAs, their national FAs. They were like some serious pressure, and whether they didn't risk it. There were some visa problems as well. Some of the Eastern European countries couldn't get visas and stuff. So it was a bit of a...
But there were only six.
That's why there were only 6. They wanted that's why they wanted obviously more to have, but they just couldn't get the... I think Brazil was their big...
Yeah.
They really wanted
especially as it was taking place in South America.
Yeah, exactly.
Well.
So that was a big shock to them, but... and then there was some controversy. There was lots of... you can't make it up, really. You just go, oh my God, as if that happens.
Yeah.
I think Argentina kick got missing when they had to play against Mexico. Their kick went missing. You're just like, really?
Well, we know one of the England kits went missing because we know where it is.
Liz, yes, exactly. Yeah. She nicked it.
So, do you think you'd rather have had a football career than a badminton career?
It would have been nice, it would have been nice to sort of pass down, sort of that sort of family legacy. I feel a bit, I'm rubbish at football. It'd be nice to learn something from mum. I'm more frustrated that there was nowhere for me to go, even if I could. Yeah. I think that's what's really more annoying. But the fact that mum taught me in other ways, I can't. She was a huge inspiration, in that side. So I'm glad, because it would have been wasted. I think it would have been wasted, because I think really what was going on in the 80s, early 90s for women's football, not really much. And you were talking about your daughter's sort of giving up, and if there had been more pathways or more support, would they have carried on?
I'm sure if she hadn't have had to travel so far for games.
Yeah.
Like they're travelling out to Southend on the weekend when she was like 12.
Yeah.
It's a long day out, and then
And she had to play in a boys' team until she was 11.
Yeah.
Because there weren't any
So
girls'
yeah,
teams.
exactly. So and you know that's going on. Then what do you expect? You'd be like, oh, for God's sake, it's just hard work. Or, you know, it shouldn't be that. It's So yeah, I think I'm glad in a way, but also a little bit. What if? Maybe.